Deep within the shadows of human psychology lies a terrifying truth about how long-term malice eventually manifests in the physical flesh. We often think of toxic people as surviving their own chaos unscathed, leaving a trail of broken lives while they remain perfectly intact. But nature has a dark way of balancing the scales before the end arrives. There is a silent, creeping physical rot that claims the narcissist long before they die. This degradation is not just a standard byproduct of natural aging, but rather a profound psychosomatic collapse. For decades, these individuals live in a state of perpetual warfare, driven by an insatiable need to dominate and exploit everyone around them. Their minds are constantly flooded with bitter resentment, unacknowledged shame, and a desperate fear of exposure. Eventually, this constant internal poison begins to leak outward. The human body was never designed to sustain a lifetime of pure, unadulterated malice without breaking under the pressure. When an individual spends decades manufacturing lies, gaslighting loved ones, and harboring intense envy, their nervous system suffers. The chronic stress of maintaining a false reality keeps their biology in a permanent state of high alert. This toxic internal environment slowly triggers a process of somatic decay. It begins subtly, often misdiagnosed as standard stress or the unfortunate luck of poor genetics. You might notice their skin losing its vitality, taking on a gray, lifeless hue that cosmetics can no longer mask. The vibrant mask they use to charm the world starts to crack, revealing the hollow, exhausted creature underneath. Their eyes, once sharp and predatory, become dull pools of unresolved bitterness and deep-seated fatigue. As the years progress, this physical deterioration accelerates in a way that feels intensely unnatural to onlookers. The posture that once exuded unearned arrogance begins to warp, bending under the weight of their own psychological poison. They carry themselves like individuals who are carrying an invisible, suffocating burden through the world. It is the visible manifestation of a soul that has completely cannibalized its own humanity. Every single interaction they have had was built on extraction, leaving them completely bankrupt on a cellular level. Without genuine human connection to sustain them, their bodies begin to mirror the desolation of their inner lives. They are consumed by a specific type of biological wear and tear that modern medicine can identify but never truly cure. It is the physical price of a lifetime spent destroying the emotional peace of others. When you observe a narcissist in their later years, you are looking at a living monument to chronic self-destruction. The very defenses they built to shield their fragile egos end up locking them inside a decaying biological cage. They cannot escape the reality of their failing flesh, no matter how many lies they tell themselves or others. The illusions of grandeur disappear, replaced by the grim reality of a failing physical vessel. This somatic breakdown is particularly terrifying for them because their entire identity was anchored in external perception. To lose their physical vitality means losing the primary tool they used to manipulate and control their environment. They can no longer charm strangers or intimidate their victims with the same effortless intensity as before. They are left naked, exposed to the world as the frail, broken entities they always were. The process is slow, deliberate, and entirely unrelenting, acting like an internal acid that eats away at the core. It affects their sleep, their digestion, and their immune system, leaving them highly vulnerable to various ailments. Every unvented burst of rage and every calculated act of cruelty leaves a permanent scar on their organs. They are literally rotting from the inside out, driven by the very venom they meant for others. To understand this phenomenon is to understand the profound connection between a corrupt mind and a failing body. It is a slow-burn tragedy that unfolds in plain sight, offering a chilling glimpse into the ultimate cost of evil. The deterioration is absolute, systemic, and utterly inescapable for those who choose a path of total destruction. It sets the stage for a behavioral breakdown that exposes their darkest manipulation tactics. To dissect this somatic collapse, we must first examine the specific behavioral patterns that catalyze the decay. The narcissist operates on a continuous loop of idealization, devaluation, and ultimate discard of their victims. This cycle requires an immense amount of psychological energy, forcing their brain to stay in a state of high friction. Over time, the neurological strain of this constant warfare begins to damage their physical biology. Consider the act of gaslighting, which is the systematic distortion of truth to make victims doubt their own sanity. To pull this off effectively for years, the predator must maintain a complex mental ledger of fabrications. They must constantly remember which lie they told to whom, keeping their mind in a state of perpetual hypervigilance. This mental strain elevates cortisol levels, which slowly erodes their vascular health and tissue. Furthermore, their reliance on projection acts as a psychological toxin that eventually rebounds upon their own body. Projection is the process where they dump their own hidden shame, self-loathing, and inner filth onto an innocent victim. While this offers temporary emotional relief, the underlying shame remains trapped deep within their own physical cells. You cannot harbor that amount of subconscious self-hatred without it rotting your flesh. Their insatiable hunger for narcissistic supply is another behavioral driver that accelerates this physical decline. This supply, whether it comes in the form of praise or absolute terror, acts like a drug to their unstable ego. Like any severe addict, they require higher and more frequent doses of validation just to feel basic stability. The constant anxiety of securing this supply keeps their sympathetic nervous system completely overloaded. When the supply inevitably dries up or rebels, the narcissist experiences a profound state of narcissistic mortification. This is not ordinary sadness. It is a catastrophic systemic shock that floods their body with inflammatory chemicals. During these periods of intense narcissistic injury, their immune system takes a massive, unmitigated hit. Their body essentially begins to attack itself, mirroring the emotional destruction they cause. They also experience a profound inability to feel genuine joy, gratitude, or deep, authentic empathy. This leaves them entirely dependent on negative emotions like envy, spite, and malicious schadenfreude for simulation. Feeding exclusively on these states creates a toxic internal environment over several decades. Their cellular structure reacts to this emotional filth, resulting in premature aging and physical degradation. We must also analyze their complete refusal to take accountability, which creates a permanent state of friction. When a normal person makes a mistake, they confess, process the guilt, and allow their nervous system to settle. The narcissist refuses this release, choosing instead to suppress the truth. This unresolved psychological tension hardens within them, manifesting as chronic internal pain and systemic stiffness. Their speech patterns even reflect this physical rot, becoming increasingly laced with bitter venom and exhaustion. As they age, the charm fades completely, leaving behind a raw, unvarnished hostility that is draining to witness. They speak in a way that sounds like they are choking on their own unexpressed rage and disappointments. The body registers this pollution, further degrading their physical vitality. They become completely trapped in a cage of their own making, unable to stop the destructive behaviors that feed the rot. Every new plot to ruin a reputation or manipulate a family member drains whatever physical reserve they have left. They are burning their own house down just to ensure the neighbors are choked by the toxic smoke from the fire. It is a masterclass in psychological self-cannibalization that leaves them physically hollowed out. As these destructive behaviors solidify into permanent habits, the physical damage becomes entirely irreversible. The manipulation tactics that once felt like powerful weapons now act as slow-acting poisons within their veins. They cannot turn off the machine of malice they created, even as it actively tears their biology to pieces. This internal devastation paves the way for a grander, cosmic shift where justice begins to take over. When we look at this decay through a broader lens, it becomes clear that we are witnessing divine retribution. This is not about active vengeance or human retaliation, but rather the execution of an absolute cosmic law. The universe operates on a system of balance, ensuring that every action eventually generates an equal reaction. For the narcissist, the currency of their malicious actions is paid back in physical agony. For decades, these predators assumed they were completely immune to the consequences of their heinous actions. They laughed at the tears of their victims, walked away from ruined families, and felt entirely untouchable. But the scales of justice move slowly, gathering weight in the spiritual realm before dropping into the physical. Their bodily decay is the precise moment when cosmic justice breaks through their wall of illusions. There is a profound spiritual irony in how this divine balancing act unfolds in their twilight years. The very people they spent a lifetime trying to diminish and destroy are often thriving, healthy, and completely free. Meanwhile, the narcissist is left trapped inside a crumbling temple of flesh that refuses to obey their commands. The power they thought they wielded over others is revealed to be nothing but a complete delusion. This retribution ensures that they can no longer hide from the spiritual truth of what they have become. In the past, they could simply run away from their victims, find a new target, and reinvent their personal history. But they cannot run away from their own nervous system, which has kept a perfect record of every cruel deed. The body becomes the ultimate, unbiased judge, delivering a verdict that cannot be appealed. The divine law dictates that whatever you sow into the world must eventually grow within your own garden. Because they spent their lives sowing discord, terror, and emotional rot, that is exactly what their body reaps. Their organs begin to fail in a sequence that feels almost meticulously designed to strip away their arrogance. It is a slow, methodical undoing of their entire earthly construct by forces far greater than them. Watch how they handle this cosmic shift, and you will see a creature consumed by absolute, helpless terror. They try to bargain with doctors, buy expensive treatments, or find new victims to drain for vital energy. But the spiritual debt they owe is far too massive, and the collection agency of natural law refuses to be bought. Every attempt to escape the physical rot only highlights their complete and utter impotence. This is the phase of their lives where the spiritual vacuum they created inside themselves expands outward. It begins to swallow their physical health, turning their daily existence into a grueling marathon of pure survival. The glamorous facade is completely stripped away by the hand of providence, leaving only the raw truth visible. They are forced to look at the monstrous nature of their reflection every single day. The victims who once wept in silence can now stand back and watch the flawless execution of cosmic balance. They do not need to lift a finger or seek revenge, because the design of creation is already handling it. The universe acts as the ultimate protector of the innocent, ensuring that no act of malice goes unpunished. The rot we see in the narcissist's flesh is the physical evidence of that spiritual law at work. It is a chilling reminder that we live in a world governed by deeper rules of morality and energetic balance. You cannot spend a lifetime breaking the souls of others without your own vessel shattering under the weight. The retribution is not loud or theatrical. It is a quiet, systemic erosion that happens in the privacy of their skin. It is the silent rendering of a long overdue cosmic bill that must be paid in full. As this spiritual justice solidifies its grip, the narcissist is forced into a state of total isolation. No one wants to be near the toxic aura of a decaying predator whose outer shell matches their inner darkness. They are abandoned to the consequences of their choices, left to rot in the prison of their own fading physiology. This divine balancing act naturally transitions into the final, silent collapse of their mind. The silent collapse represents the terminal phase of the narcissist's journey through this earthly existence. At this point, the degradation moves beyond mere physical ailments and begins to consume their entire consciousness. The fragile ego, which they spent a lifetime protecting with elaborate lies, starts to fracture irreparably. They find themselves trapped in a state of continuous psychological and physiological freefall. As their body rots, their mental cognitive faculties begin to mirror the chaotic disintegration of their flesh. The sharp, calculating mind that once orchestrated complex webs of manipulation becomes deeply unfocused and paranoid. They begin to see enemies in every corner, convinced that everyone is plotting to treat them with the same cruelty they used. This paranoia creates a secondary wave of stress that accelerates the rot. They are forced to confront the reality of their own mortality, a concept that their inflated ego completely rejects. The idea that they are subject to the same biological laws as ordinary human beings causes immense panic. This existential dread is not met with philosophical grace, but with a frantic, ugly resistance that burns more energy. Their remaining life force is completely wasted on a war against an undefeated opponent. During this collapse, the memories of their past victims return to haunt them, though not in the form of healthy guilt. Instead, they are tormented by the realization that they can no longer access or exploit those sources of supply. They remember the people they broke, not with remorse, but with a bitter, starving hunger for the control they lost. These memories act like mental parasites, eating away at their remaining sanity. The isolation they experience during this phase is absolute, terrifying, and entirely of their own making. Friends, family members, and former enablers have long since fled the radius of their toxic, soul-crushing energy. The few who remain do so out of a sense of grim obligation, providing care without a shred of genuine warmth. The narcissist can feel this emotional coldness, and it cuts through their remaining pride. Their physical environment often begins to mirror this internal rot, becoming neglected and increasingly sterile. They lie in rooms that feel heavy with the stench of unresolved malice, ancient resentments, and impending doom. There is no comfort to be found in the material possessions they gathered through deception and exploitation. Those objects stand as useless, silent witnesses to a life that was completely wasted on illusions. Medical professionals who treat them during this stage often note an unusual, deeply unsettling aura of despair. They describe patients who are not merely sick, but who seem to be actively decaying from an internal poison. Their bodies refuse to respond to standard treatments, as if the will to heal has been entirely vetoed by the mind. It is a biological shutdown that mirrors the spiritual bankruptcy they chose decades ago. Every day becomes a grueling exercise in witnessing their own slow-motion erasure from the face of the earth. The skin sags further, the organs whisper of failure, and the bones ache with the weight of ancient, hidden crimes. They are forced to watch the slow demolition of the false god they built in the mirror every single morning. It is a torturous punishment that fits the exact nature of their lifelong psychological crimes. They become completely hollowed out, a walking shell that contains nothing but bitter ash and fading echoes of rage. The grandiose proclamations of the past are replaced by weak, pathetic whimpers of self-pity that move no one. They have become the ultimate victim of their own campaign of terror, completely destroyed by their weapons. The collapse is total, leaving absolutely no room for redemption or peaceful resolution. This silent undoing is the inevitable destination for anyone who chooses to live outside the laws of empathy. It proves that the human body cannot harbor a demonic level of malice without eventually being consumed by it. There is no soft landing for the predator, no quiet twilight where they can enjoy the fruits of their cruelty. Instead, they are pushed into a final loop of reflection that brings everything back to the start. As we bring this deep analytical journey to its conclusion, we must integrate the lessons of this decay. The physical rot of the narcissist is not an isolated event, but a universal warning for all of humanity. It demonstrates that our physical health is intimately connected to the moral and emotional choices we make. You cannot separate the condition of the human heart from the ultimate condition of the living body. When you look back at the entire trajectory of their life, the pattern becomes undeniably clear and precise. The manipulation, the lies, the theft of emotional supply, and the total lack of empathy were never free. They were simply running a massive tab with nature, falsely believing that the bill would never come due. But the biological ledger must always be balanced, and the payment is extracted directly from their flesh. This realization should bring a profound sense of peace and closure to anyone who has been harmed by them. You do not need to waste your precious life force seeking revenge or waiting for them to apologize to you. The design of the universe is already executing a flawless verdict that is far more thorough than anything you could plan. Your only job is to heal, walk away, and leave them to the destiny they created. The narcissist's final days are spent in a state of absolute confrontation with the reality of their choices. They cannot use their old tricks to escape the physical decay that is closing in on them from all sides. The wealth they accumulated, the titles they stole, and the people they fooled cannot save them now. They are stripped down to their absolute essence, forced to endure the cold reality of their inner winter. It is a slow-burn horror story that unfolds entirely within the borders of their own failing biological system. Onlookers might only see an aging person getting sick, but those with eyes to see recognize the deeper truth. They are witnessing the final containment of a predator, neutralized not by human hands, but by their own poison. The monster is finally consumed by the very venom it used to terrorize others for years. This process strips away any remaining illusions of their grandeur, leaving them entirely naked before time. The terrifying beauty of this cosmic law is that it requires absolutely no human intervention to function. It operates silently, efficiently, and with total impartiality across every single human life on Earth. It ensures that those who live by emotional destruction will ultimately perish by physical erosion. For the survivor, witnessing or understanding this collapse is the ultimate validation of their own sanity. It proves that the madness you experienced was real, and that the universe acknowledges the depth of your pain. The predator who made you feel small is now being reduced to absolute nothingness by the laws of creation. You can finally let go of the burden, knowing that justice is being served with perfect precision. They are left to linger in the ruins of their own ego, listening to the ticking clock of their final hours. Every breath becomes a reminder of the emptiness they chose to cultivate instead of love and human connection. They are completely alone, even if the room is filled with people, because no one can join them in that dark space. It is the ultimate isolation, a psychological exile that mirrors their internal desert. Thus, the story of the narcissist does not end with a dramatic explosion, but with a slow, pathetic fade. The rot completes its work, turning the once feared manipulator into a tragic, hollow monument of self-destruction. They become a living testament to the absolute futility of malice and the certainty of cosmic retribution. Their entire existence is distilled into a single, haunting lesson for the world to see. When the final curtain begins to fall on their broken vessel, the human mind is drawn back to the core mystery of this existential tragedy. We are left completely alone with our thoughts, contemplating the profound, inescapable connection between a corrupted soul and a decaying physical body. It is a relentless, hypnotic cycle that forces us to look past the superficial mask of grandeur and realize exactly how